interesting because they are much more verbally aggressive in Australia, and I wonder if that's an Australian trait than distinctly Adventist, but it's certainly a Jewish trait. So it's certainly it's certainly much more compatible with Judaism than with the Adventism I encountered in America.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I hadn't thought about that connection, but I can certainly see that. But I think about just the sense that I have from what I've read about particularly what was going on in 60s and 70s and 80s Australian Adventism. Maybe nobody would have said we're competing, but I just have the sense that a lot of people would have said those aggressive impulses that maybe we couldn't vent in the boxing ring, we're perfectly willing to vent in this theological debate. I mean, it's certainly something I see. I can think of, in connection to your dad. I still remember chuckling over this. That reading a piece he'd written critiquing a book by Robert Princeman, who of course is a friend of his. I mean, and yet I still remember he finishes the piece. This is like an 11-page article, and he just finishes it. You just hear him chuckling. The preparation of this piece has been this morning's pre-breakfast exercise. I've just kind of tossed this off to zap him here, and there's just this clear sense of jabbing the knife in and twisting it. And,
trying to think of this other Australian evangelist who is just a very strong personality, Seventh-day Adventist evangelist.
Has he been over here?
Yeah. And I'm trying to. He's like 10 years younger than my dad. John Carter.
John Carter, yeah.
John Carter.
I was thinking about John Carter. Yeah.
That's a really combative person.
I don't know him at all, so I don't. My parents, I think, used to watch him on.
Yeah, that's a very fiery, very combative person. It's like you don't want to get in front of that freight train.
Yeah, well, I think about a friend of mine who is, I suppose, he's got to be a rough contemporary of your dad's, whom you might know. There's a whole big Australian Adventist family. Bernard Brandstater, you know the Brandstaters?
I don't remember the name.
Yeah, well, they've been over here for a long time, but there are 5 kids, I think, and their father was an evangelist. The kids have gone on to do other things. A couple of them are doctors here, but I mean, if you don't know Bernard, my mentioning him isn't going to matter that much. And Bernard, if you're watching this, I don't mean this in any hostile way. Bernard's just a very strong personality.
Yeah.
And, he's very mellifluous when he speaks, and he certainly is not somebody who's trying to beat up on you, but he clearly has a point of view.
And I remember the evangelists would get together, and they'd talk about, like, I saved 150 people at this place, and I saved 200.
That's not competition.
I saved 200 people here, and we had 1,200 people here, and and I preached the word to 500 people in New Delhi, and and we had 45 come forward on our altar call. And
evangelism has always been the sexy thing in Adventism.
Yeah.
It's clearly been the thing that's gotten the attention. I mean, the person who just does kind of ordinary pastoral nurture of congregants is very much a distant second.
Yes, it's the soul winners.
Yeah.
It's like that's one of the things I hated about Adventism and Christianity was when people would get into the mindset of everybody's just fodder for Christ.
Right.
It's like, when these evangelists would start, their dick measuring, sorry to be crude, was how many souls they'd save for Christ. And it was like, everyone they met was just like fodder for Christ. And it's just such a reductionist way to, encounter people.
Well, and it's hard for that not to be. I mean, it becomes a socially acceptable way of engaging in ego gratification.
Mm-hmm.
It's you can announce that what you're doing is something beneficial to humanity, I'm not saying that people, were somehow deliberately lying about that. I'm sure they believed that, and yet there has to have been a constant rush that came from this sense of, being the one who packs the people into the hall, and so.
I don't know, you remember when the walls fell down in Eastern Europe and how quick the evangelists were just dying to get over there and start saving souls.
Right.
Just dying to get over there. Just like
this fresh field here.
Fresh field. Like, to get conquer. It's like, whoa. Ay vey.
Yeah, definitely not always a healthy.
I had this observation from a rabbi that I'll bounce off you, from Mordecai Finley, the guy he said if Protestants had more rituals, they wouldn't be as driven to evangelize.
Interesting.
Meaning that, like, as an Orthodox Jew, you have so many ritual requirements. You have no time and energy left to evangelize beyond your fellow Jews, and even that is, limited. You're like, as an Orthodox Jew, you have to pray in the morning, which takes about 40 minutes, the morning service, and then the afternoon and evening service take about half an hour. So that's about an hour and 15 minutes a day that you're praying. And then, not to mention how expensive it is to lead a Jewish life for various reasons, so you've got to work really hard, and then you're supposed to have a lot of kids, and then you're supposed to study Torah, and there's just, there's so many ritual requirements that while Protestantism, there are very few rituals comparatively.
Yeah, so especially in kind of low church Protestantism like Adventism.
Yeah.
Clearly, as you move toward Lutheran and then even more Anglican Protestantism, you get more kind of ritually laden, certainly worship environments, but even then not the kind of stuff outside the worship service that you're talking about in the context of Orthodoxy. So, yeah, I think it's easy to see how that would redirect one's attention.
Yeah, like if you've got Jewish energy, you get up and you strap a filling on your arm and you put it on your head, and then when you pray, it's a very different experience. In Christianity, in Adventism, you get down on your knees, but in Judaism, it's like it's a full body shuckling back and forth. And so, we turn that energy into wrapping leather on our arm, while I think in Christianity, or particularly Protestantism, that energy much more naturally goes into spreading the word.
Well, and I do think there is undoubtedly that helps to determine how people's religious energy is invested, but I also think it does matter that if you're in a community that says, our role in relation to God and the world is to be a light to the world by being this kind of community, that's very different from being part of a community that says, what we do for God and the world is to convince other people to share our beliefs.
Yes, exactly. It's totally different.
And so if you really think all these people are going to be tortured eternally if they don't buy into this package of beliefs, then obviously your conception of how you're going to interact with that wider world is quite different. And I think that you can't underestimate the value of that set of beliefs for shaping how Protestant energy has been invested.
How does, I don't recall this, is there an Adventist view on beards?
I don't think that Adventist culture has been very consistent there. I think probably, my sense is that in the 1860s, 70s, and so forth, beards were de rigueur, and by the 1960s, beards were frowned on. I think probably, that just varied with the state of play in the wider culture.
Yeah, because there are two different commandments in the Torah against cutting the corners of your hair and cutting your